Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gamers of all makes and models, size formats, forest dwellers, mountain climbers, circus folk. Too much?
Maybe.
Whatever. It's a podcast. How's it going? How's life? Has winter left you guys yet? I am sick and tired of the cold. I've had enough. It's April. It's time for rain, and it can wash some of the brown away and fix some of this. I don't know.
It's a touchy subject.
You're in Canada, though. I thought it was always cold there.
No, man.
It's pretty much always cold here, too.
We have nice, balmy weather. It's rare. It only lasts a couple of months, and then it's over. That's sort of how that goes.
I'm in Tennessee. It snowed this morning. I'm very upset.
As you should be. Snow's not good for anybody. Oh, my goodness. It's been a month. We missed last month, and now here we are in April of all times. I'm sitting here with Hawk from Discord.
What's up?
We got Welsknight, who won't go away.
Exactly.
Which is
Can't get rid of me that easily.
We have to get Mrs. Welsknight on here at some point. That'd be good.
That would be totally doable if she would agree to it. She's like a little shy.
Yeah, she's in chat. We can goad her into it at some point, I'm sure. And
Okay,
our guest of the month is SlicedLime, who does
Hello.
some YouTube stuff and does some development stuff. Currently at Mojang, if I understand correctly, and previously from EA Dice.
Also correct, yes.
Excellent. So, tell us a bit about yourself, because Hawk's been around before, Welsknight's been around before. We are gamers, and we all like things that the other people don't like, and that kind of stuff. But we don't know anything about this SlicedLime. Is there a reason for the name?
There's a long story about the name, and it's far less exciting than most people assume that it will be.
Oh. Does it involve tequila?
It doesn't. No.
I'm so disappointed.
So I had a Q&A saying that I did for one of my milestone videos. I think it was 5,000 subs or something on YouTube, and I did the whole story. So it's, if you really want to know, you can go and listen to the whole thing there. But it involves basically, I had this nickname and it was taken on some forum, so I made up a new one and kept this aspect of the old.
It's one of those.
It's one of those. It's not too exciting.
I see what you're doing, subtly promoting your stuff already. Yeah, well, I'm not going to tell you, but if you want to see, go watch my videos at youtube.com/SlicedLime.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. No, that's good. So what are you doing at Mojang? What's the job title there?
The job title currently is lead of Bedrock development for the Stockholm office. So, Minecraft development is split between a Redmond studio and a Stockholm office, which is Mojang. And I'm in charge of the Stockholm teams that do Bedrock development, which is the C++ code base, console, Pocket, Minecraft, and all of those things.
Okay. How many people? How many are you responsible for cracking the whip on?
Ooh, I crack so much whip. It's maybe about 20 odd people.
Fair enough. There's a whip in Minecraft, isn't there?
No, but there should
Depends on
be.
how much you mod it.
Yeah.
Feature requests coming along already.
We'll just toss that out there. Why not? Okay. So backing off from that, then you worked on, it was Battlefield.
It was all of the Battlefields. It was
All of the Battlefields.
I think 5 or 6 different Battlefield games.
Yeah, there have been a few.
Yeah, so I worked there for 11 years, so I went through a fair share of Battlefield titles.
Okay,
and then also a Mirror's Edge Catalyst.
All right. And you're programmer by trade, but do loads of things, whatever.
Yeah,
they
I mean, I
require you
started
to do.
out as a programmer, and then I sort of shifted a little bit into design, and I did the technical design, and technical design director was the title on Mirror's Edge.
Right.
And then now I've sort of shifted back into just programming and programming lead, I guess.
Fair enough. All right. That's good. We have some good topics on the Minecraft side, on the EA side. There may be some things you can't answer, but it's always worth asking the questions, right?
Of course.
What are you guys playing? What's the good word in games over the last couple months? Because as I say, we did miss a month here. What's been exciting you? Fine.
So I guess
I'll pick somebody then.
I'll jump in. I actually haven't had that much time to actually just sit down and play for the longest of time. It's been incredibly busy. I have a couple of games that I just keep returning to that are just like the eternal draw that I just never get tired of, and those are like the ones I keep going to whenever I do have the time. So I've played far too much Rocket League for my own good, and I got drawn into the whole PUBG craze when that was happening.
Convert to the Battle Royale.
Oh yes. So those tend to be the ones I sort of go to, and then I play a bunch of VR games as well.
Yeah, I played. I like Rocket League. It's fun. I don't have it on PC. I got it through the PS Plus or PS Now.
Right.
One
at the very beginning.
And it was fun. It was really good. My problem is I'm no good at these games. None of them. It doesn't matter what any competitive game that's out there. I'm terrible at it. It's just the way it is. And
that's
so of
not
course,
a problem that like 2,000 hours couldn't solve.
Well, yeah, that's fair. But then I can't stick to one game for that long and actually I don't know.
You just got to get good.
I have put a lot of time into Overwatch and I still suck.
Right. I did try
knows.
Overwatch and I quit it because I sucked at it.
we dumped a good 200, 300 points off of Whitehawk by playing multiplayer games and ranked with him. That's all my fault. I take full responsibility for that. Oh, that's good times. All right, fair enough. Okay, now, why did you get into the PUBG stuff? What is it? Just because a ton of people are playing it, and let's see what this is all about, or because I've done the same thing. I'm not on the PUBG side. I'm in Fortnite now. But why? Like, what made you decide to take that plunge? Because it's a very cruel set of games.
I think for me, it was like we have this like Friday gaming sessions that we do at Mojang where people like try out new games and stuff. And somebody was like, "Hey, play this game," and I'm like, "Oh, okay then." And then I was stuck. That's all it took.
That's. I mean that says a lot for the game, right? Because especially PUBG, which is, let's be frank, a little janky. Like it
not entirely polished.
Yeah, very clearly a mod being sold rather than a game developed from the ground up, right? Whereas I believe, at least, Fortnite seems to have a bit more polish behind it. But now that's just me being a little bit pedantic, I suppose. But
I think it was even worse back then when I started. It was really, really glitchy and odd.
Yeah, I mean, and now they obviously have the money to make it better. It makes me wonder whether they should, or even if they are, if they're not really doing that much development on the current game and using the money that they've got to actually build one from the ground up, because it just seems like something purpose built would be so much better than a mod to me. I don't know.
It seems to have worked for them.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, it certainly has not sold low numbers for sure. Hawk, what are you playing?
Well, pretty much since it came out, most of my gaming time has been dedicated to Dragon Ball FighterZ. I am in love with that game. That game is so much fun. It is so bombastic. Like, you feel like you're actually in like the fights of Dragon Ball, and like that's a feeling I expected to fade after like a couple weeks of playing the game. Be like, okay, yeah, it's flashy, it's whatever, and then like eventually like the system mechanics take over, and you like you get over the nice coat of paint. But I'm still not over the really nice coat of paint on there. So it's very satisfying. And now I'm at the point where I'm just like continually tryharding, continually like watching the pros and like trying to like actually not suck at fighting games, because I've never been good at fighting games. But I'm like, this game is motivating me to actually try and learn and get good.
Do you play with a stick, or are you playing with a pad, or what?
I use a hitbox, actually. I really like the hitbox. Just like the straight digital inputs just feel right to me.
Yeah.
Because even this like traditional arcade sticks that people use, even though they're technically digital inputs, like it doesn't feel that way when you're actually using them.
Right. Okay. Anything else? I've played a little bit of DBZ. They sent me a code for it, and I have the same problem that I have with everything else. Right? Is there has to be a single player kind of thing that is relatively well fleshed out, and it's not. Like it's
Yeah, that's fair. There's a lot of like really cool fan service in the single player, but as like a standalone experience, it is like pretty mediocre. I'll give it that.
yeah. No, I mean to be
Yeah.
fair, most fighting games are kind of like that, right? There's not an amazing story in very many of them, so
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, a few do, but they're the exceptions, not the rule.
and end up hoping for something that's unlikely to happen at the best of times, anyways, right?
Yeah, that's fair. The other game I wanted to talk about that I played recently was the Batman Enemy Within. It's the second season of the Telltale Batman game.
Okay.
I finished that yesterday, and it was like surprisingly satisfying. And the kind of I don't know how much I want to like spoil things, but like the way the game
Yeah, don't spoil
ends,
it, but
yeah,
you know.
no. I mean, I'm like it's sufficiently divergent in the way that like all the other Telltale games aren't. So
Okay.
like I don't know how they would do a season 3 with it without like forcing people to like stick to a certain like set of choices. But it
Okay.
was like both a really cool take on Batman and like sufficiently divergent in all the choices you made, and like it actually felt like your things mattered, and it wasn't just like a different flavor text to get to the same ending.
I should
Which
take a look at that. Yeah, because that's always been the problem with Telltale stuff, right? Is they give you these sort of pseudo choices, save this guy or save this guy, but at the end of the day, which avatar is standing there doesn't matter, or the other one dies, in a few scenes later, anyways. So that they were both going to die regardless, and it just kind of doesn't. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I really liked
I mean,
The
like-
Walking Dead. They were great. They were a lot of fun, but I haven't done
Yeah,
that
for sure. I mean, they were well done, but like when every like to a certain extent, like some decisions have to be kind of like just flavor text because like that's not realistic. But
Yeah.
at a certain point, you want your decisions to matter, and I felt like this game, like they actually did matter. At least the big ones, and like enough things leading up to it, like came to a satisfying conclusion.
That's good. I'll take a look at that one for sure. I've heard good things about it. They turned me off with Game of Thrones because it was so bad. It was just not. I couldn't. I love the characters. It's. I love the world. It's awesome. And then it was just not good. So, Batman, Telltale, good stuff. Welsknight, what do you got?
So let's see. Since the last time that we did this whole little podcast thing that you wake me up early in the morning for,
I'm so
I
sorry.
Played. Hey, we'll negotiate a later time.
Yeah,
some other, afterwards.
11 a.m. is that's really early in the morning.
That's cruel.
Oh man, you know what? I don't need your judgment right now, Tarmack. I don't need it. No, let's see. Slay the Spire. I was playing a lot of that. It's a deck-based roguelite. Really, really good. Very enjoyable. I've stopped playing that now, but it's still in early access. They're going to be adding a third character at some point. And at that point, I will absolutely be returning to it. So that's really, really good if you're into roguelites or if you're into deck builders, card stuff like that. Very, very good. Played Into the Breach for a while, which is kind of a turn-based tactical strategy meets chess. It's from the developers of FTL. It's also fantastic. I find that it's a really good game to play, but not a really good game to watch as much.
Right.
Because there's a lot of just like thinking and calculating moves and trying to, strategize in your head and stuff like that, which is totally fine if you're playing by yourself. But if you've got an audience watching, doesn't exactly make for the most riveting content.
Yeah.
So I think I did like 10 episodes of that and then called it good. I still play it occasionally, just like, when I'm like waiting on a video to render or something like that, when I'm not actually recording anything. But the big one that I have recently started that I am actually like kind of obsessed with is Far Cry 5. I just started that like when it came out, and it's awesome. It's and like maybe. So the game is set in rural America in Montana, and it focuses on like a kind of pseudo-Christian cult, like Christianity, but to like a twisted sort of extreme level, right? Like not really Christianity. I mean, it's a cult. What more do you want me to say? But but then it's Far Cry, you know. So you've got these characters that are just really over the top and taken to a level of absurdity that's just really entertaining and fun, and like it's really good. I'm enjoying it immensely. I'm like, it's come to the point where I'm like, I should really be recording tomorrow's whatever episode, but really all I want to do is record another week's worth of Far Cry videos. So I've got like all my Far Cry stuff recorded for like the next 2.5 weeks. But yeah, it's really good. I enjoy it a lot. First AAA that I've played in a long time that I've enjoyed that much. I think the last AAA that I've enjoyed as much as I'm enjoying Far Cry 5 was like Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. Like it's a pretty game. I will grant them that. I haven't played very much. It was a demo that I did. But it's just gorgeous. How do they get around you basically have a significant area that you're going with that is covered in militia, and for whatever reason the US military has not decided to have an interest in it? Like, how do they get by that whole thing? Because they're everywhere. The cultists are everywhere, and they're randomly walking around carrying guns and taking hostages and killing people, and like, so they're not going to send in one guy with an army of turkeys to go and do something.
So minor spoilers, but what I'm going to spoil is like revealed within the first 10 minutes of the game. So, mute for the next couple minutes if you want to avoid being spoiled the first 10 minutes of the game. But basically you go in to arrest the head of the cult with like a US Marshal. And the idea is like, we're going to try and arrest him, but if it all goes wrong, then we'll call in the National Guard. Eventually you get stopped and like stranded and stuff. And it turns out that like your dispatch person is actually like in cahoots with the cult. So they just never tell anyone that like you've gone missing or that anything has gone wrong. They're like, oh yeah, it's all totally fine. That's kind of the basic, the convenient plot armor, if you will.
Fair enough. It looks interesting. It does. I mean, as I say, it's a absolutely gorgeous game.
I think
it's getting really good reviews. There's some controversy though, as you've, wanted to add it as sort of a bit of a topic to discuss. Did you want to just hit that now? I mean, why not?
Sure, we can. So, I have one other thing that I want to talk about with Far Cry first, though. I think part of the reason that I love the game so much and that I'm enjoying it so much is that like I grew up in a very religious, very conservative family in rural America.
I love how careful you're being.
So there's a lot of these, but what I'm saying is like there's a lot of these stereotypes that are, I mean, it's Far Cry. Far Cry is kind of notorious for taking this stereotypical something and then, cranking it up to an 11 to the level of absurdity and making these really like over the top characters. That's kind of one of the things that Far Cry is known for. And some of the characters that I'm encountering as I'm going through this game, I'm like, dude, I could have gone to high school with this guy, because I grew up in, Montana is not rural Wisconsin, but they're close enough. Like we had our share of rednecks and we had our share of, all these different types of people that you encounter. Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, this guy could have been my dad. This one, I could have gone to high school with this mullet wearing, lifted truck driving, so like I think I can kind of like relate to aspects of the game, and I think that's part of why I'm enjoying it so much. But anyway, there's been some controversy with Far Cry about like a lot of the reviews of the game from major mainstream review sources, IGN, GameSpot, Kotaku, et cetera, have criticized it for not commenting on the current like political landscape in the United States, even though the game is set in the United States in present day.
Yeah.
So there's been some interesting discussion that I've seen about like, should a game criticize, should a game make commentary on the current political landscape if it's set in present day America, and if it doesn't, should it be criticized for that? Is that something that you should dock the review score for? I think like GameSpot gave it like a 6 out of 10 or something like that, 6.5 out of 10. And their only real gripe was that like, oh, they missed an opportunity in the story to comment on the current political landscape of the United States. And I'm like, I don't think that's really a reason to dock it, X number of points. But like, I don't know. What do you guys think?
To me, that's fishy. Hawk, you look like you got something.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I don't know if they'll come out completely coherently, though. I guess we'll start with the most basic thing is like, in terms of like docking review scores for it, like if you're saying like 6.5 out of 10, like if you're docking like half a point or something, like I can see that being as like a legitimate criticism, like from a respectable reviewer, like the game missed an opportunity to do something, they didn't like that, so that's a knock against the game. But I don't see that like, at least I can't see in a non-narratively focused game, like Far Cry is not like all about the narrative. It's about like freedom and exploration, kind of like blowing a bunch of stuff up. Like I can see that being like a legitimate criticism of the game, but I can't see it be like taking like an 8 out of 10 game down to a 6.5 out of 5, maybe like an 8.5 to an 8 or something. Not something that low. That seems a little bit extreme.
Yeah. Fair enough. Sliced?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a AAA game. Like if they chose to really comment on the current political climate in a very divided nation, then it sort of stands to reason that they would lose a whole chunk of their customer base. Like I can't see how they could really do that, make that choice. And I think like they're sure. I agree with. There's certainly some legitimate criticism to should a lot of other culture forums do a lot of commentary on the state of the world and politics and everything. But then if you look at movies, like there are a lot of movies that also don't, and they're fine with just being about like, look at these cool explosions. And that doesn't mean they can't have a story that's set in America, or that doesn't mean, all of those things can be legitimate forms of expression in gaming, I think. And there's, at least in my mind, there's a little bit of a disconnect between some of the bigger review sites and the common gamer or person who plays games, however you want to identify it, is like, do the viewers or readers or whatever it is of these sites really care that deeply about that issue? Is that like the main point of them buying a game or not? Like, I really question that. Because the point of a review is to be informative to your audience, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that's a good use of that space.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. I think the if they have built a game which is very clearly intended to mirror some of the political landscape, which Far Cry appears to be, like there's a lot of this that seems very intentional because of things that are going. It's entirely possible that if they don't tie it together at the end or in some kind of overarching way where it makes sense, the story could fall apart a little bit, right? There is some logic there where, if they had gone and done the actual political commentary, then maybe more things would make sense. Now, having not played it, I can't say one way or another. But I mean, there have been other games that have courted the controversy a little bit closer, but they tend to do it towards the real fringe, right? So Wolfenstein and stuff like that they'll actually go for the jugular on it. But of course, Ubisoft wasn't gonna go and actually alienate, millions and millions of people in the States. Of course they weren't. They picked the setting because, this gives them sort of that controversial push, but then they also picked the most ridiculous possible type of people that they can throw in there so everybody can say, yeah, we're a little crazy, but not that crazy. Like that's the absolute fringe, right? Everybody can kind of distance themselves from it and everybody can play it and have fun. So I think it makes a degree of sense.
Yeah,
I think even Wolfenstein, if you look at that, like as far out as that is, it's still got its share of people who are like, oh, I'm not going to buy that because it's political.
Yeah, I agree with your earlier point about do gamers really care? Because Wolfenstein, both first and second. I mean, granted, it goes back a lot further than that, but first and second recently with Bethesda sold really, really well. Gamers didn't seem to care, right? It was just IGN and Kotaku and Polygon, and I don't remember each individual article, but they tend to. When it's a slow news week, let's find a reason to make people talk about games.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't even think it's necessarily like a let's generate controversy kind of thing. Like, honestly, like hearing, like, part of the reason I was interested in this game and like was like considering picking it up was because it was like mirroring the like political landscape, and I wanted to see like what are people's takes on it. I kind of like. For me personally, I want to see that like more controversial thing. I want to see people like take a stance one way or another and do something interesting.
Well, fair enough.
Kind of like the caveat is like I don't know if Far Cry is like the right game to do that in, but still, like for me personally, that was like a little bit disappointing that they didn't go down that route. I understand why they didn't do it. Like it makes business sense, but it's still like a legitimate thing that I'm kind of disappointed they didn't go down.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, they did bill it as a controversial thing, right? They chose that setting. They chose to do it in present day ish America, and so yeah, you could have people that are disappointed for sure.
Yeah, sounds like we're mostly agreed on that. But the question is it that big of a deal?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think. No. I mean, obviously, there are some undertones to it. Not. I mean, they're not going to blatantly come out and say like and make some sort of a political statement, right? They're not going to obviously do that, but there's certain undertones that are there for sure, just based on the setting and the types of characters that exist in the game, and kind of going back to my point about how like I'm enjoying it because I can relate to a lot of the characters and stuff that I'm that I can find. I mean, I think the worldview of someone who's raised and spent their whole life in like a big city like San Francisco or something like that is going to be very different than the worldview of someone like me who was raised in a town of 700 people in the middle of nowhere. So certain types of statements that characters might make or certain themes or whatever might make some people uncomfortable, whereas for other people, it might just be like, oh, this is just how life is, and I think that's kind of one of those things to consider with the whole Far Cry thing as well, is that like some of the things that I've seen reviewers criticize Far Cry for like NPC dialogue lines or like whatever. I think part of that's based on the fact of like their worldview is this and my worldview is this, and
yeah, fair enough.
What makes them uncomfortable does not make me uncomfortable, or vice versa. Things that I might get offended about or whatever might be something that they don't. Different people look at things in different ways, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I think the game, my ideal version of the game would like explore that dichotomy more and like care about that and make it front and center. Like I wouldn't agree with criticism that just like is unhappy with dialogue just because it says unhappy things, if that's still like a realistic representation of something, or I guess in Far Cry's case, an overblown version of a realistic thing, someone would say.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like mildly disappointing, but not unexpected that they didn't dig into that more. Because like I get the point about like different worldviews, right? Like, but there's also a certain understanding of like, you say, oh, there's people I grew up with, and I see people I used to know in those people, and I understand that, but I also like would like to see like changing dynamics of those people like over time and in different like political climates that like bring out like the worst in people, and like you see people and you're like, oh well, I got along with you really well, but like for one reason or another, like now we don't, and it's like frustrating and jarring, and it's due more to external factors than internal factors. And those are like some of the like the interesting things that I think games could explore in like a more dynamic way. And like again, Far Cry is probably not the place to do that, but it's It's a place I wanted to see that
yeah,
happen.
I think that could be the core of it. Really, is that Far Cry is really not the kind of game that should be tackling serious issues, right? We have the crazy flaming attack turkeys, and you take a bear around with you, like it.
Yeah, that's fair. They want the bump from the controversy, but they're not the place.
Yeah,
actually
you can't really be both. Yeah. A ridiculous, over the top explosions and killing, and also tackle serious political issues.
Well, I don't know. That's like Metal Gear Solid's whole like attempt at like narrative, right? Like be ridiculous and bombastic, but also still have it like somewhat relate to actual things, which is
fair enough.
One way of doing it. My
Fair
favorite
enough.
way of
Maybe
doing
you
it,
can.
which is maybe why I'm more disappointed than the average person would be.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can. I'm sure you could, but it seems to me at least that you certainly don't have to just because you're making that game.
Yeah. That's fair.
So let's talk about microtransactions. Does Far Cry have any?
It does. They are, and I will say I'm like roughly 8 hours into the game, give or take. So I mean, it is Ubisoft, so maybe I'll get 20 hours, and they'll be like, if you want to proceed, buy this. But from what I can tell, the microtransactions that I've encountered so far are all cosmetic, skins for guns, skins for vehicles, stuff like that. There's, as far as I can tell, there's no actual like proper content or story or areas or anything like that that's locked behind microtransactions.
Okay, because that was sort of the topic that I had chosen. There's been a number of games that have had issues with, or have tried to resolve issues with recently, their microtransactions. So most recently, Shadow of War, they're taking them out. I don't know how they're going to do that, because I mean, that's the core of the game. The game's, they're going to have to rebalance the whole damn thing. But so be it. And then Battlefront 2, same sort of situation. They came back with just cosmetic because the previous iteration was so bad. Destiny's having issues, apparently. Not quite as popular as it was supposed to be, not doing as well as it was supposed to be, and a lot of that seems to be because of the monetization of it. Have we gotten to what is too far? Like, has the market decided, no, you can't do this? I'm curious, because I'm scared that that's not the case. I don't know that I believe that it is, but it could be. Thoughts?
I think to some extent, it's kind of partially the result of an increased attention on it. We've got lawmakers talking about loot boxes and stuff like that now. And I think some of the large studios are kind of backpedaling a little bit because they don't want the government regulation to tell them how to do their thing. So they kind of want to back off and let the heat sort of settle down a little bit. I think some of that's happening. I also think that, with the controversies involving like Battlefront 2 and some of this other kind of stuff, I think some of these companies are kind of backing off a little bit to sort of save face. Like the way that I see the Shadow of War, for example, is kind of like a too little too late. At this point, like, who is still really playing Shadow of War a lot and buying all the, I think at this point it's kind of like, all right, well, we got our money. Time to make a change so we can look like the good guys, but I don't know.
So I actually have a question for Sliced, and I'm curious if you know anything about this. I realize it's more on the corporate, the business side of things. The timing of Shadow of War bothers me a little bit. They had it out for a long period of time. Microtransactions are essentially always, for the most part, they're a publisher-driven thing. Right, it's a way of increasing revenue, and usually it's a mandate as part of the contract, from what I understand. But why would they remove them now? And why would, because it was Monolith that made the announcement. Does Warner Brothers not care now because it's too late? Like, does the same thing? I'm curious if the same thing went on at EA. Is there a higher appetite to remove them later because the publisher's not involved anymore, or anything along those lines that you can can remember?
I think, first of all, I think it's very different in different places. Like, if you look at places like Electronic Arts and DICE, DICE is a studio that's fully owned by Electronic Arts. It's like part of the company. It's essentially the same thing. So there's this, especially among fans, there's this strict divide where it's easy to say like, oh, DICE, these good developers are doing this thing, but then the big bad EA wolf is coming down and forcing them to do this, and that's not really kind of what happens. It's one company, and you're all like working in one group to get something done. Yeah. So I think in many of these cases, yes, it's been like from the very top, it's been a mandate that you do microtransactions, but it's not a thing that is like, oh, the studio doesn't want to do microtransactions, but the publisher forces them. It's more like, we're looking at this budget for this project, and it doesn't add up if we don't make more money somehow, because the things have become incredibly expensive. So it's probably mandated in many cases, and it's probably not just the case that we want to make our money back. They want to make a huge pile of money.
Of course.
Because that's how it works. I agree on that. I agree with Wells. It's probably in some cases like we're not making much money out of this. Nobody likes it. Nobody's buying our microtransactions. We've probably sold most of the copies of the game that we're going to sell by now. Let's just pull them out and hope for a quick PR win in that case. I think there's a difference like in Battlefront 2. That became such a mess from the very release that it seems to me like I don't have great insight into the company anymore. So this is my view from the outside simply, but it seems like they got into so much trouble from it that it didn't sell the game.
Yeah, there was a lot of pictures of the shelves in Target around Christmas time where there are no games anywhere except this giant pile of Battlefront 2 everywhere. Like
that's obviously like horrible for both the company image and your bottom line of the game. So when they sort of stepped away from that and go like, well, okay, we're going to shut down the microtransactions in the game at the moment, and we'll maybe add them back later. And then when they came back, it was like, okay, it's a much revised system now. I think that was in large part to like we need to actually sell these games.
Yeah, I do think
like what you said before is like, have we reached that point? I hope we have. Like it's becoming so ingrained into like the design of games that it's becoming a real big problem in how it's actually making games worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think as well, if you like read between the lines here, right? I think first of all, I think that the Shadow of War removing the microtransactions, these different things that we're discussing, I think they're a positive thing. Like let's give a little bit of credit where credit is due, right? Better late than never is my thinking.
Yeah.
But I think if you kind of read between the lines a little bit, you're seeing that these studios are kind of recognizing, okay, people don't like this. This is sort of a thing we got to be careful with. If they're completely oblivious to the fact that people don't like microtransactions and don't want them in the game, they wouldn't be removing them. So there are definitely some positive things with this. Does it mean that we've reached the breaking point? Maybe not, but I think we've at least gotten closer to it.
Right.
And I think it's important to kind of look at that and also, give these developers a little bit of a pat on the back. Maybe they have ulterior motives, maybe not. Either way, better late than never. I still want to give a little bit of credit where credit is due and say like, okay, good. It's a step in the right direction.
That's fair. I want to go back to something that Slice was saying and kind of springboard off of that too. The whole good developer, evil publisher thing is something that's bothered me for a long time. Because that's just basically how gamers treat it, is that the developer is always operating in the best interests of the gamer and the publisher is always the evil one. Microtransactions inclusion in video games is a part of the publishing contract. It's known before you start development that you're going to have to do this. If you're now with DICE, it may be different because of course they're a part of the same, so there isn't really a publishing contract, right? But when you sign up for a publishing deal with a publisher, a lot of these budgetary items and things that are being discussed, that's in the contract. You're your CEO at your development company has already agreed that those are going to go in there. So the developer hasn't been forced to. They haven't been coerced to. It was just part of the deal. Right?
Well,
like
I mean, that's a question of semantics, I guess. But like, if the only deal that you can get for developing a game with that kind of budget does include that, then it's, is it free choice or not when you have one option? I mean, yes, you could not make a game and shut down the studio. That's an option, but it's not an option that anybody would entertain.
Okay, fair enough. I wonder how much shopping around goes on. I do. I know that there are a lot of these studios will get into longer term relationships with a publisher too. Right? They'll sell a contract for 3 games in a series or whatever continued relationship and stuff like that.
Right.
So not necessarily as easy as just saying yes or no, but the fact of the matter is that they did say yes in advance and knew what they were getting into. It's not like it's a surprise. It wasn't an email that came in 3 months away from release saying, get these microtransactions in here or else. No, it was known at the beginning. Like, this is just a part of the business, right? No, that makes... Okay, so on the breaking point thing, I guess what worries me is the breaking point used to be horse armor in Oblivion. Right? Like, that was the worst possible thing anybody had ever done. And they got all kinds of shit for it, and now that's a non-issue, right? Because it's just cosmetic. That's totally fine. So, are we in a position where they've pushed forward, they hit the line, now they're going to back up a little bit, and the generation that is the growing gamer generation that knew nothing else other than DLC and microtransactions is getting older. As they age, they become the majority. So, are they just pushing the line further forward? Hawk, you haven't really gotten in on this one yet.
They're certainly trying to. I don't know. I don't like predicting the future because that never goes out well. I mean, I just kind of assume greed on their part and they'll take whatever they can get away with because, like, that's their job to make more money. Yeah. I mean, I do think I share kind of like the underlying cynicism in your question is like, yeah, I think the line is going to continue to be pushed. But I don't, to a greater extent, I don't know if that's so much of a useful discussion, so much as like, when do we push back and when do we say like that's not okay and just like keep talking about it?
Yeah,
because I think that's all like we can realistically do. Like whether it's good or not, like, and whether it's going to happen or not is kind of like irrelevant. It's like what can we say and as consumers respond to the games? Like what's the realistic things we can do there?
Yeah,
but
no, that's fair. I went to a talk at GDC, and it was the International Game Developers Association. It was a little roundtable thing, and it was interesting to hear them talk. There is a real divide between developers and publishers on some of these things, right? The ESA is the big publisher-funded thing that is the lobby for them, and they don't always seem to agree between the ESA side, the publisher side, and the developer organizations. But it was quite remarkable to hear the developers that were in the room not seem to understand why people didn't like microtransactions. Like it was very bizarre to me, because they're gamers too, and I have a hard time understanding why they don't realize what is wrong with it, like what the problem is with it. Now maybe they just don't want to admit that in public. I don't really know. That particular talk, they were very much overshadowed by all the people that were there to talk against the topic, and the media that was there, so they didn't do very well. But it was an interesting discussion at the very least. How are the internally? What's the view on microtransactions at developers? Sliced, is that do they just kind of roll over and let it go, or do they actually believe that they're doing something good?
Well, I think it's again, it's different in different places, but in most teams I've seen, it's been like, okay, yeah, well, it's what we need to do to, you know, it's the way that we can make this game now, because we have this budget and it's not going to work if we don't sell this much, you know,
Right.
this much copies and this much dollars worth of stuff afterwards. So in most teams I've been, it's like, okay, so how do we, if that's our precondition, like that's where we are coming from, that's the thing that doesn't move. How do we do that in a way that it becomes, you know, a good game, that it doesn't mess too much with the game we want to make, that it doesn't become too obtrusive to the user. I think, like, going back to what you said about, well, people like these developers don't seem to realize how bad it is or what's bad with it. I think from like way back when I was starting out in the games industry and microtransactions weren't really a thing, there's been several phases of trying to find new sources of revenue through different things. Like first it was like, oh, everything is going to go onto Facebook and Facebook gaming is the new thing. And then it was like, oh no, everything is on mobile. It's now free to play. Free to play is going to be the new thing.
Right.
And then now we've ended up in some form of mixed land where, you know, well, we'll still take the money for the product, but then we'll also do the free to play thing, which is where I think people are like going like, hold on, this isn't cool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's been other things along the way as well. I mean, the ad supported model is a thing that exists. When you see a Pepsi can or a billboard in, you know, a Batman game, it's there because of money. They paid for that, right? That stuff happens a lot, and so
and I think, you know, at some point it's like, I like the way that the industry is trying to do something else than just say like, because initially this was all like, okay, people are pirating our game, we need to get more money, so we're going to do all of this stuff instead to get more money. And I'm at least happy that it's gone away from being this, we need to have super draconian rules in place to prevent people from pirating games, and then you really do really bad stuff for your actual paying customers as well. That just happens to be collateral damage. Nobody cares because, you know, piracy. That was like the universal excuse for screwing over your customer for such a long time. And I'm really happy that we're moving away from that. With that said, I think every developer I've ever worked with has, you know, realized what the kind of impact of microtransactions is. It's just that, you know, what's too much. I think customers have pretty clearly said that, you know, Battlefront 2 was way too much, and I'm happy that happened. Like this establishes this line where, yes, people really didn't like this, and it's not like they had a big protest. They didn't like it. They actually didn't buy the game, which is, you know, that's where change has to happen. Because as long as people are like, we hate this, but I'm still going to buy your game. Well, guess what? Nothing's going to actually change.
Yeah, the big old Reddit boycott where, you know, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. And then the very next day, all of these people, all these handles that were saying they weren't going to do it are sitting in Call of Duty, you know, the brand new game. Like,
this is a fantastic screenshot of a group on Steam that is like boycott Call of Duty, whatever it was, where every single member almost was playing Call of Duty.
That's the one I was thinking of. It was because we do that, right? I mean, and you know, gamers are difficult to mobilize in one direction, but it does seem to be remarkably powerful when it does happen, because they're very, very loud, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, I'm all over that for sure.
Good things sometimes. In this case,
if they're you know, I believe in people. On the whole, people are good in general, and if the greater game community has chosen something to be upset about, chances are it was justified. You know, I just wish that they were outraged a little more often about certain other things, but that's just, you know, you can't win them all.
It's so true though. Like, you know, I am vehemently against microtransactions. You want to know my dirty secret? I bought the horse armor.
Did you?
You know, I mean, it's like,
it's all your fault.
Exactly. You know, it's like, I'm going to be outraged about this thing, and I want everyone else to be outraged too. But secretly, when no one's looking, I'm going to go do the thing I'm supposed to be outraged.
I really want the armor.
You know, don't tell anyone.
I have bought Overwatch boxes. I have bought Hearthstone cards.
Mhm.
Now, to be fair, I didn't really start complaining about them until afterwards. It was kind of that, like, this is all I got? Are you fucking kidding me? But yeah, no, it totally happens, right? I hate this business model, but I'm going to go and I'm going to play this game. And it's bad on the YouTuber side too, especially if they send you a copy. Right?
Oh yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yep.
Not play it?
Right. Well, and then on top of that too, like some people, like I'm an example of this. Some people just need to have all the content. Like you look at like Skyrim. Do you remember how many like little DLCs there were for Skyrim? Or
Well,
like
was...
or maybe it was Oblivion. Either way, all the little like you unlock this extra house that you can go to that has this place and this look, all that kind of stuff. Like I had all of that because I want my world to be complete because I love the game so much and I want to have all the things. Yeah,
I think that's one thing that bothers me about all the different editions is that there never seems to be an edition that actually has everything now. It just doesn't like it, especially if you look at the Ubisoft games, right? They've got digital deluxe and gold and platinum and collectors and all of these different things. And to get everything, you would quite literally have to buy it 2 or 3 times, depending on which version. And just make one that has everything, guys. Just, even if it costs more, even if it's, who cares? Just have one version that actually has everything. And then we know what the price of the game is.
Well, but the thing is, they do.
Genuine and honest.
They do. And we rant about it. Season passes. You buy the game. You buy the season pass, you get all the stuff, and then we as critique people in the industry go, season passes are the devil, and we must avoid them at all costs. How dare they?
That's not what I mean, though. That's not what I mean. There is, even with a season pass, you're going to have a pre-order that is exclusive to GameStop and a different one that's exclusive to Best Buy, and then you're going to have one that's that kind of thing. Like even with the season pass, there's still something you didn't get. Because you picked the wrong place to buy it or the wrong time to buy it. There was some talk about Spider-Man recently, actually. They said that the microtransactions or the pre-order bonuses are unlockable in-game, which is different. That's relatively uncommon. And they're not doing terrible monetization either. So that's kind of cool. There's a lot of people that are hyped for that one.
I think there are clearly, good and bad ways of doing this. Let me go back to Rocket League and let me gush about that for a while. So they sold, like, first of all, like it was for free if you had the PS Plus thing. So they got a lot of people in that way who never like actually, of course they paid for their PS Plus or whatever, but they never actually paid for the game. And it was pretty cheap on Steam when I got it because I play it on PC. And it's like they introduced loot boxes for whatever, it is. Loot boxes, you buy keys to unlock them, you get a random thing, it's all cosmetics. And they have a few things like I bought all of their DLCs, I buy a bunch of the keys and stuff because I love the game. I know I paid quite, a low price for the game. And they do have all of these things that are, if you don't like it, go into options and you can switch all of it off. You never have to see any of the loot boxes. And I think that's, really nice thing to do. So if you compare that to something like, the Battlefront 2 version that was like the first one, where you have basically have to have these, and they're tied into the progression of the game very closely. It's a huge difference in how you do it, and I understand that the big publishers and other the developers are starting to back away from it now that the actual politicians have started realizing that this is actually a problem. People are actually feeling kind of misled and fooled by this. And if we get laws against this stuff, it's gonna strike across the board. It's gonna be very heavy-handed, and you're gonna be basically not allowed across the board. So I understand that it's gonna be it's much better if actual developers and publishers learn to do this in a respectful manner.
I would love for them to do that. I'm gonna steal the last word, then we're gonna take a break. So I have a problem with microtransactions in general. Anything that is a loot box to me is a dishonest transaction, and that's the part that really bothers me about it. Is that they're not an honest transaction I will give you this thing, you will give me this money, we have now traded, and away we go. And as soon as they get into the loot box thing, I don't care if it's cosmetic, that doesn't matter, because that's not what's bad to me. It's the fact that they have to manipulate people into buying it, and as soon as you've done that, it's just dishonesty. You know, it bothers me. It's one of those things. Okay, so we will be right back. Give us about 8 minutes, give or take, and don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a bit. All right, so we're back, and I want to start an argument. I'm gonna change the order of what we're doing on our little outline here. Games where you make your own fun. So, Sea of Thieves came out, and a lot of people are really upset. They're all grumpy because the content seems really lacking, right? So, Sea of Thieves, if you haven't played it, basically you get yourself a ship, and you get these little fetch quests. So you get a map or a clue of some kind, or you have to go and gather chickens or pigs or whatever. And you go around and you pick stuff up, and there are other players and they can kill you. And that's basically the game. Now, I did a piece talking about the sailing and how much fun and immersive it was and all that kind of good stuff. But basically, Sea of Thieves is a game where you make your own fun. Minecraft is a game where you make your own fun, right? There's no... by yourself without getting into the building. Okay, I don't want to offend anybody because I know you guys love this game. I can't play it by myself. I can't do it and enjoy it because it's just not fun. But I totally understand why people get into the building and why they get into the creation of games and things like that, right? Because Minecraft basically has its two effective modes. You've got your sort of not campaign-ish, but your open world where there's stuff and things out there, and then you've got your invincibility, build whatever the hell you want kind of thing. So where it comes to Sea of Thieves, to me, it has a fair amount of content. More, now granted, it doesn't have the building, but it has more to do than base Minecraft as far as the game structure itself. I feel that this is the case. I could be wrong. But what do you think about games where you have to make your own fun? Where it's up to the player to enjoy it. It's not that the game is necessarily giving you all of the things that you need, in a linear way or in a story way or anything like that. We can start the fight now.
So here's the difference. All right. Most expensive version of Minecraft, $26.95. Sea of Thieves, $60.
Okay.
Price. If Sea of Thieves was $30, I bet you would see so much less criticism of Sea of Thieves. Like, most of the criticism I've seen has been, yeah, it looks fun, but it doesn't look $60 worth of fun. This is a full price AAA title. And it's open world, PvP. Yeah, you make your own fun. Yeah, that's great. I love Sandbox games. Most of my time is spent playing Sandbox games. But the cost difference is like the biggest factor here. If Sea of Thieves was $29.99 instead of $60, I think you would see a very, very different reception to it. And then leading back to Minecraft, the sandbox in Minecraft is a lot bigger than the sandbox in Sea of Thieves. I mean, you've got your survival, you've got your creative mode and stuff like that, but then you got to get into, there's all like the map making and the coding and the mods and like there's so many things. I mean, you're talking. There's people who recreated Pokemon Red in Minecraft. Like, that's not something you can do in Sea of Thieves. Yeah. It's like the draw of a sandbox game, at least for me, is the ability to be creative and do whatever you want. And I don't think that there's a game out there that has as much potential to do whatever you want as Minecraft does. Because there's the stuff that you mentioned, but then you've also got these, you got servers where there's mini games and PvP and things that people have created and maps and stories and you name it. Like, there's just so much different stuff out there that you can do with that game that you can't do in a game like Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, I will say, like, Minecraft, if I were to pick a community that seems to have the most passionate group of people that are willing to throw an inordinate amount of time at a game, Minecraft is it. right? Above all other, I mean, there are a lot of big, great modding communities out there. I don't want to downplay the people that do modding for Skyrim and Fallout and all of these other things that are out there. But Minecraft really takes the cake because it seems to have been built for that purpose. And obviously, I guess it's fair to say that Sea of Thieves wasn't. Sliced, you look like you want to get in there.
Yeah, sure. I'll join the fight. I think if you look at those two games, like there's a clear difference to me, right? One is high fidelity, and it's sold as a game that has a specific purpose to it, a specific type of content. Like I haven't actually played it myself at this point. Let me just mention that. But all of the trailers and all of the showcases on like E3 and Gamescom and all of those like highlights that we had beforehand were, all right, here is a certain type of game for you, right? It's a certain type of game that seems to be about adventure with my friends, about, experiencing content.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, here, make something out of the sandbox. It was never sold that way. And the second piece is like the fidelity of Minecraft is not low by accident, if you could say that. Like, a lot of people go like, oh yeah, Minecraft is like pixelated and QB because they couldn't make it any other way. But no, it's actually designed that way. And what it does in terms of like making my own things inside of Minecraft is it puts a cap on the skill level required, right? Because if you have a very high fidelity game and you want to build something that looks really nice, then you have to be extremely good at making really beautiful things.
Yeah.
And it's probably pretty complicated to do that, and it requires a certain artistic ability, and it requires a certain technical ability on the side of that. And the pool of people who can make that top level stuff is just like incredibly small. But if you take something like Minecraft, where everything is pixelated no matter how you do it, and of course people discover techniques for building that looks better than, oh, it's a block on top of another block, then, but still it's capped in what you can do.
Right.
And because of that, everybody can just get in there and build. And I'm not a great builder, but what I build is still going to look decent, even next to the best builders. It's not going to look like as good, but it's going to be, a recognizable house or whatever. So it by being low fidelity and by having these huge blocks with a pixelated texture, it actually, inspires you to start using these things and start creating stuff for yourself. And that becomes the entire point of the game, essentially.
Right.
Sure, there's an end boss, but I mean, yes, and there are different ways of playing it, but it does foster that creativity. It invites you to build with stuff in a way that many higher fidelity games don't. And that's not despite of the fidelity, it's because of it.
Right. And it also had an extremely low bar for entry from the performance side of things, right? I mean, so when you go lower fidelity, your audience can be basically anybody with a potato. Anybody can play, and then the people with the really crazy rigs can do their high res texture mods and that kind of stuff if they really want to. That makes sense. I want to,
and then you couple that with price too, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure. The price thing, I agree. I think is a huge part of it. They also, when they were marketing the game, when they first announced it and first showed it off, they made it look like it was a single player co-op campaign kind of thing almost. Like they really showed this sort of story angle to it, which is not there. You would have to create that, which is kind of unfortunate. I want to drag Whitehawk into this one. I would say that Sea of Thieves has more content than Overwatch does. For the amount of stuff that's there. Now, obviously, the Blizzard stuff is
a lot.
Blizzard is far more polished, but quantity of content would seem to be in the favor of one versus the other. But Overwatch is far more on the mechanics side.
Yeah, well, I would argue that like the systems and the mechanics are the content, right? Like you build up these systems, and then like the many unique ways they can interact is like what makes it unique and interesting. So like in multiplayer games, like no two matches play out the same. So that's new that's like a more or less infinitely replayable source of content. Whereas like Sea of Thieves, if you're like, I don't know too much about the game, but like if you're doing the same kind of quests over and over and they don't have these like dynamic systems that make them constantly feel fresh, then like I don't care if it technically has like more modes or maps or whatever. Like if the content doesn't feel fresh, it does not have more content.
Okay, fair enough. The reason I mentioned it, the reason I brought that up is that the combat in Sea of Thieves is really bad, right? It's you have a sword and you can swing your sword, and you have a couple of guns and you can shoot your guns, and they're not ridiculously accurate. They're not. The combat is not something with a high skill cap. It's a basic system. But I was curious if they had gone gangbusters on the combat itself and made it far more intricate, made it far more interesting. Would Sea of Thieves been a better game? Would people have treated it a lot more like a multiplayer PvP competition? And would that have made it a better experience for people?
I don't know
I
if
think
it would
they would
be better,
have
but I'd
this-
certainly be more interested in playing the game, because right now I have zero interest in it. Like, it just seems like a kind of like if I got it for free and like my friends got it for free, like yeah, I'd play like a couple hours. It looks kind of fun, but it doesn't look like anything I want to spend money on right now.
Right. What if they threw 100 pirate ships into a single ocean?
Then I'd be on board all the way. Let's go.
They can airdrop you
That
in
actually
from a
sounds
parrot.
kind of fun though. You say that jokingly, but like naval battle royale, and if you go in with like your own squad and you can like go over and take over other ships.
Yeah, I was
So,
totally not joking.
Here-
Okay, yeah, because that actually sounds like pretty awesome. But-
So here's a question for you, Tarmac. Would you rather fight 100 pirate ship-sized oceans or one ocean-sized pirate ship?
I think the one ocean-sized pirate ship. I mean, all you need is one good-sized hole, and it's over. Down it goes. I think it would be a really interesting way of adding a mode to the game. I mean, whether their server structure is set up in a way that it can handle it, probably not. I mean, you need vastly
absolutely.
different
Battle Royale.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
need vastly
like, that's
different netcode to manage, 100 ships and people than you do to manage 4, right? I mean, they intentionally seem to have designed the game that you don't run into people all the time. I don't know. I'm curious. It makes me interested because the game, as I played it, was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and since release, I haven't opened it once. And I'm struggling with myself on why that is, because it's a game where you have to make your own fun, but I'm also not generally attracted to games that you have to make your own fun, right? I had a really hard time getting into Minecraft. I played it, with the stepson a little bit because he was into it for a period of time, and then he moved on to other things, and I don't even know what my login is anymore, right?
I think it takes like a certain type of person to enjoy games that you make your own fun, to enjoy the sandbox. Like some people don't have like that creative part in their brain that like desire that needs to be scratched. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Some people don't want to have to come up with things to do. They want to be led through a story or through a narrative, or they want a task presented to them that they can accomplish. Right.
Yeah.
And other people, like myself, for example, I want to come up with the task myself and then figure out how to accomplish that task. And I think that's kind of what it takes to enjoy a sandbox game. And when you're looking at like Sea of Thieves, you've got this gameplay loop. And I will also say I haven't played Sea of Thieves either. I've seen it. I've watched videos on it. I've watched streams, stuff like that, but I haven't actually played it myself. But it seems to me like for the most part, it's a game that you need a friend or two to really get the most out of it.
Yeah.
And B, the gameplay loop is basically the same. You go out, you raid, you explore for treasure, and you sail around and you do stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's essentially that same gameplay loop repeated over and over and over and over and over again. And like it seems like the type of game that would be fun to enjoy for a few hours with some friends, but not the type of game that I can see myself sinking 3,000 hours into, like I have, Minecraft. Or maybe even more than that at this point. I don't know.
So is it that they misunderstood their audience? That they built a game designed for the people who like to make their own fun, but didn't give them enough tools to keep them around, right? If you had a persistent island, for example, you start on that same island every single time. When a map spawns, it's your island, and you can build things on it. You can create your own, you have to buy your own stores. You have to, set this thing up the way that you want. And you can build your ship. You can make more additions to your ship and things along those lines. Not through loot boxes and that shenanigans. Leave that for the cosmetics. But allowing some degree of progression and customization, would that have kept the people that
would be a huge step in the right direction? Absolutely. I think if I had the ability to have an island and turn that island into my baby, and make that island evolve over hundreds or thousands of hours of gameplay. And I can, buy upgrades for my ship and eventually end up with, basically the Death Star of the seas. That would be so much more appealing to me than a game where basically it's the same gameplay loop and the focus is more on like the competitive sort of PvP aspect of it. Because to be honest, like I don't care about PvP. I never have. For the most part, I stay away from competitive games because A, I'm terrible at them, and B, I just don't really care. Like I'd rather build pretty things, But if I can get invested in something, if I can get invested in my island and my ship and my crew and my, all these different things, like that would be far more appealing to me, especially if it's a system where every island can be truly unique, instead of like buying the armorer for 500 gold doubloons or something, and then an armory appears on the island. Like, allow me to build an armory and put it wherever I want, and allow me to change the colors and allow me to change this and that, and you know what I mean? And so that when someone comes to, when a friend comes to visit, they go, oh, wow, this looks really cool. I love what you've done with the place.
Yeah. Even if the like armor is the same NPC or, the same inventory, but you can still, you get to put the anvil here and this there. And
exactly. Kind of yeah. I'd love, that's really the appeal of Sandbox games to me is the ability to ultimately have somebody else see what I've done with my sandbox and go, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. It does seem like there's a little bit of confusion on the market, right? They went with a competitive game, but without the high skill cap tools to make it a real competitive game. Looking at the audience of people that like to make their own fun, maybe not giving them the tools as well. Sorry, Slice, you had something there.
Yeah, I think it's to me, it doesn't seem like it's a confusion in the market even. It seems like they didn't really like know what kind of game they were trying to make. Like what was the focus? Do we want this to be a PvP game? Do we want this to be about combat and about, the Overwatch style of gameplay? Do we want it to be really competitive? Or do we want it to be like, because, any game can be used to make your own fun. If people, do crazy challenges or speed run various games, or there are any number of ways to use whatever game out there to just have your own adventure and make your own fun. But is it made for it? Is it made for that type of player who wants to do that, who wants to build a lot? Is it made for a competitive player? Like, who is this game for? Because looking at how they sold it, it's for somebody who wants to have adventures with their friends. It didn't look really competitive at that point. It looked more like let's have a fun time. And that, to me, implies also wanting to experience pre-made content. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't seem to be where they ended up. So did it actually change it along the way, or did it just like fail to make what they wanted to make? Where did they want to take this game? And I from looking at the pre-release stuff and looking at the actual release game, I can't tell. And I think that sort of is the finger on the point of what the problem is. Like, what is this game even?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the average gamer is going to look at it and see the same thing, right?
And they're going to go, is this game for me or not?
If it's not immediately obvious, then they'll find
probably not.
Yeah. And again, I mean, the cost thing too, you're talking about a game where you want to go out and have it with friends. So I got to shell out $60 and my wife has to shell out $60 and my cousin Billy needs to shell out $60 and our mascot, Buster the dog, needs to shell out $60 if he wants to be, you know what I mean? So you're talking like $360 to have you and three friends go and sail around for however many hours that's going to hold your interest.
Yeah.
Now, we could pool our money and buy a console for that kind of money.
Now they did, so it's a part of the Game Pass as well. So for Xbox, and they've got a free trial for it, but it's like $10 a month or something like that. And it's basically, video game rentals in a digital format. So $10 a month, you can play this and whatever other new games that are coming out. I think Crackdown was going to be a part of it. I can't remember. There was another new first party title that was supposed to be as well. So I mean that does reduce the cost rather dramatically for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Make you pay it over time, but then you get other games, and I still have to go yell at EA because I forgot to cancel my Origin subscription and I haven't used it in 10 months. So yeah, just the way it goes. Should we move on to VR? Yes,
we can.
Sure. Let's.
Wells, do you have a VR headset?
Nope.
No? Sliced?
Yep.
Okay. And Whitehawk doesn't, but might be interested in the near future.
It's gonna happen in the near future. Like Beat Saber looks too good. Like I've wanted a VR headset for a while, but I haven't been able to justify it. And Beat Saber isn't really a justification for it. Like it's a single indie game, but like at some point I'm gonna in the near future I'm gonna have one because
I love
that game just looks like so much fun. It looks like lightsaber rhythm game like that. It's so cool looking. Back in the day I put a lot of time into DDR, and I haven't had another good rhythm game that I've been able to get into, and that looks like something I could really really sink my teeth into. I just hope they support it with enough post-release content, because right now it sounds like they're going to be a little bit shy.
Yeah,
but...
so I got a chance to see Beat Saber at GDC. I lucked out this year. It was fantastic. They gave me a media badge and everything. It was all kinds of fun. So I was scheduling various appointments. Valve didn't have a booth, but they had a room right across from the press suite. So I managed to sneak in there and see a couple of things. Beat Saber was one of them. And I chatted with the developers a little bit about it. They said that their target was around 10 songs, which is low. That worries me a lot. But I think I got the impression that they really got surprised by how much people wanted this. A couple of those videos that got posted, and then the first one is up to 1 million views now, right? Just ridiculous. And they were just making a cute little VR, cut the blocks in half game. It was nothing special, but it also has a killer soundtrack. The guy that's doing the soundtrack does music for Blizzard Cinematics.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that explains why it's so good.
What's his name? Jaroslav Productions. But yeah, he has done some really great music for it. And it's fun. It's exactly as much fun as it looks like, right? Swinging the swords around and all of those sorts of things. Now, so the other things that I was chatting with them about was modding support, and then a couple of mobility issues. Modding support wasn't really on their radar too much, which I think is a huge mistake. I hope that they change that, because that will make this game. You let people import their own real popular songs in a totally legitimate fashion, I'm sure. That makes a game like this. But the mobility stuff that bothered me a little bit is it has those big blocks that come down and you have to keep your head out of them. So some of them it's just tilt your head to the side, but other ones you have to actually duck underneath them. And I mean, anybody that's got knee problems or back problems is going to have an issue. I suggested a couple of things. Anyways, to me, Beat Saber is one of those sort of killer app games. It is so much fun. And I want it yesterday. That it could actually help VR along. From what I understand, Oculus has basically caught up to HTC now as far as the number of headsets that are out there. I believe that was the case. It's their equivalent number of users using the Oculus on Steam as the Vive. PlayStation VR seems to be doing really well. They dropped their price to $300. Do you think we're getting anywhere near regular consumer adoption of this stuff, or?
I don't know if we're getting near regular consumer adoption, but I think we're at the point where it's gotten enough hype in enthusiast circles that it's starting to bleed over into the mainstream. But,
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think we're really there yet. I think, like, as much as I love VR, like putting a headset on, it's obvious that this is like first generation stuff. It's still, has its share of problems. It's fairly heavy to where you get tired quite quickly, and I still love it. I still absolutely love it. But it does show, and I think if we get a generation down, and it's like, okay, the thing is much lighter, you get better audio, you get much less of the screen door effect that you can get in the headsets and all that kind of stuff, then, well, now we're talking, and I think we will get there. I think it seems like there's enough investment and stuff going on that we will get there. And then the games are also starting to appear, I would say. Like, the headsets all appeared, and it was like, oh yeah, but there are no games. Yeah, because games take time to make. Right.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh no, VR is sort of declining, is the kind of the word of the clickbaity articles at the moment. And I think what's happened is, like, no, people just can't, got down to work and started making VR games, and they're like about to come out now because all of those like indie studios and people who left the big publishers and the big game developers to fund small studios to make VR games are all like at the point where they're starting to release games now.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen a lot of my old colleagues from DICE have left and started new studios, and one of those groups just released a game called Apex Construct a while back. It's a VR game. So I think we're getting to the point where the games are, they match up to the value you should be getting out of the headset. Now it's just a question of like getting the technology to the point where normal people that aren't like super into games will accept using the stuff.
Yeah. A lot of it, seems to be based around the development too, right? I mean, the initial VR push was from porting existing games into it, and unfortunately that doesn't, turn out very well, right? So like Minecraft was ported into VR, but the movement speed is such that anybody that's even slightly susceptible to motion sickness has a real problem, because your movement speed is far faster than a normal walk or anything along those lines. From what I understand, a lot of people are getting motion sick with it. And just regular games don't seem to translate well into VR. It has to be designed purpose-built for the VR setup.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were hoping for some of those converts, like including myself, like Fallout 4 and virtual reality seemed like such a dream.
Yeah.
But then it turned out to be like parts of it is really good. Like parts of it was like, this is amazing. They've done such a good job converting this part. And then so many other parts just don't work at all. So
my best moment in Fallout, because I played VR, the nuke going off at the beginning, and you're standing on the platform going down into the vault. There is something magical about that moment, and being able to just look around, like because I did a little bit of playing around with the public speaking things with the Samsung Gear VR, right? And it actually makes you feel nervous. You're looking at a crowd of people that are just sitting there, and it's nothing but video of those people sitting there so that you can practice, talking in public. I just figured, let's take a look at it. And it actually makes you nervous, right? In the same way, you're standing in Fallout, and it doesn't look realistic. It just looks like Fallout, but seeing a nuke go off in the distance and the wind rushing forward, like it was quite intense. I thought that was really cool.
It was a super scary and very, very intense moment. And then the problem is I had to play it like 4 times to get out of the vault because the game was not working properly. Broken. So, I mean, it really, like, at the 3rd time you're doing it in a row, you're just annoyed and you just want to get past it. So, I mean, yeah, I found the things that have worked the absolute best for me, like going back to Beat Saber, is like I played a ton of Audio Shield, which is also like, it's sort of combining the promise of what the Kinect was trying to do with what VR is trying to do, which is really, really nice. I'm also really looking forward to Beat Saber. And then I think there's something to be said for the games that are coming now that are custom made for VR, that are essentially the thing that we couldn't get before, which is like, it's not a port, it's an actual game, like the Apex Construct that was released. And I don't know if you played Budget Cuts, the demo.
I don't think so, no.
Okay, it was a demo that was released with the HTC Vive way back at the start.
Yeah.
And I might be ever so slightly biased because my girlfriend is the CEO of the company making it, but it's getting really, really good reviews, and it's about to come out soon. And people are talking about it like this is really made for VR, and I think that really makes a difference.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's the sort of portally sneaking around, throwing knives and stuff like that?
Stealth games throwing knives at robots.
Yeah, I've seen it. I just haven't played it. So
it's a lot of fun. Again, take it with the bias.
Well, no, fair enough. But it is certainly one that has been getting good reviews. I still want Blizzard to make Hearthstone in VR. Let me sit down at a chair, put a big table of Hearthstone cards in front of me, have, some random orc wandering by and smacking a goblin as he does, and just, surround me with all of this crazy off the wall tavern while I sit down and put down cards. It would be freaking amazing.
Give me like a Pokemon or like a Yu-Gi-Oh game in VR, and then I would probably pick up VR.
Like the N64 where you're taking pictures of them on rails?
No, think like Pokemon Stadium, right? Like old school, like you wouldn't even really need like a full world or anything, but just the ability to be like part of a battle like that.
Oh, okay. So you're in it first person and you've got the crowd around you and you're throwing down against, okay.
And you've got all these effects going on and like that would be so cool, But
I think it would be neat to see the actual size of the Pokemon themselves
absolutely.
Next to each other and those sorts of attacks and things. That would be really cool for sure.
Absolutely, because I mean, we all I shouldn't generalize all of us, but I love the handheld games, the DS games, going all the way back. I remember Pokemon Blue. I played the hell out of Pokemon Blue. It was amazing. I played them all. But when you're looking at the little screen there, you don't really get an idea of the actual size of the Pokemon, and you're like, okay, well, I've got a Squirtle, and the Squirrel looks basically as big as the whatever, and then you look in like the actual decks, and you're like, oh, okay, so this one's like the size of a skyscraper, and this one's like the size of my shoe. Got it.
Yeah. Well, there's that picture that has been going around about Onyx, forever, right? Where it only takes up one square in the game, but it's this massive rock thing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You kind of lose scale.
Like give me something like that. The thing that has held me back from VR, other than the fact that I just like to wait for like Star Trek holodeck technology, like give me that and I'm all in. But the big thing is the game, just the selection of games. There might be a couple of them out there that I'm interested in, but like I'm really interested in playing Horizon Zero Dawn, but I'm going to buy a PS4 just so I can play one game. And the same is kind of true of VR. Like I'm waiting for enough games to exist that it would be worth it to me to actually purchase a VR headset.
I mean, Horizon is pretty good. You should.
Oh, I'm sure it is. It looks amazing. I want to play it, but I don't want to buy a PS4 just so I can play that.
Then
it's not worth it to buy.
Too, because Bloodborne's really good too.
Stop! You're gonna make me buy a PS4. Just stop.
God of War is coming out this month, dude. That looks good.
It's pretty good.
Because what I totally need is more stuff that I don't have time to play. Yeah.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, I mean it's true, But I think the big thing is just like we need that selection of games to exist before your average consumer is gonna have the willingness to drop, $300, $400, whatever, on a VR system. Because your average consumer is not going to spend that kind of money so that they can play one game or so they can play 5 games that are all really just kind of novelties.
I think there's a couple of other changes that need to be made. VR is a wonderful thing. It's an awful lot of fun. The fact of the matter is the vast majority of the population doesn't have the space for it. It simply requires too much empty floor space in your house to be able to actually use it. And it also completely isolates you, right? And as I say, I love VR, but unless they deal with these issues, it will never become mainstream. I think the AR stuff, augmented reality, is much more likely to take off because it doesn't isolate you from the room in the same way that VR does. Not being able to see that somebody just walked into the room quietly you're sitting there playing a game and your toddler wanders in and you swing and smack him across the room or something like that, right? Or the kid's crying in the other room and you can't hear him because you're playing games, right? Either way, like there's a lot of that kind of isolationist stuff that's really, really tricky for the average person to manage. But the games, of course, are certainly, a problem. The PSVR seems to really be doing better with it, though, don't they? Like I don't know what sales numbers are, but I've heard they were doing really, really well, like probably a few times better than the other two, because the price is obviously a lot lower. A lot of people have the PlayStation that can already run things. I haven't looked up the sales numbers recently, though. So
I think the price is in combination with the fact that you actually don't need a room scale setup. You're expected to sit in your sofa still and stuff. It's gonna be something that enables a lot of people to get it.
Yeah. And so once they can figure out the tracking issues with the little magic wands, and because it only uses the one camera or something along those lines, so it's not quite as perfect tracking when you're turning around and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if we're going to hit our last topic, which is okay. I was planning on doing a video on it anyways. I wanted to kind of chat about the whole think of the children movement, violence in video games and gambling in video games and all that. But we've hit some pretty heavy stuff, and I think we're starting to run close to time. Any other suggestions or any other topics that you guys want to talk about before we start to kind of wrap things up and get on with our lives? No?
I don't think so.
All right. Let us chat about what people have coming up. Wells, you have 2 channels and millions of videos every day. What could you possibly be up to over the next week?
So I have 2 channels. I've got my main channel, Welsknight Gaming, which is primarily games in which you make your own fun. Sandbox titles, mostly Minecraft, occasionally other indie games that have at least some sort of passing similarity to Minecraft, stuff like Ark, things like that. And then I have my second channel, which is I refer to it as Sanity channel. And it's the channel where I play basically anything that wouldn't fit on the main channel.
Did you say profanity channel?
No, the Sanity.
Oh, what's really funny
is the channel that keeps me sane. I mean, in some ways it is kind of the profanity channel because
your audio cut out. Your audio cut out, and it just said "itty." My itty channel. I was okay. We're good.
I mean, in some ways it kind of is the profanity channel because the main channel is. But like I want to play games like Far Cry sometimes that are filled with profanity, and that cannot go on a family-friendly channel. So. I play stuff like Far Cry on the second channel, Isaac, things like that. Right now, I'm doing Far Cry. I'm loving Far Cry. I'm enjoying it immensely. I'm going to play through all of that. I think for most people, I've heard that the game is roughly 20 to 25 hours for the main story. So that'll probably be going for the next month and a half. I'm looking at some other stuff that I might actually go to Assassin's Creed Origins afterwards. I don't know. We'll see. The delve into AAA games on the second channel has actually gone better than expected, so I might be doing that. Got a lot of the Minecraft stuff on the main channel, just all sorts of different things. Plan to, I think I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to call it the Welskcast. Tarmack, you want to be a regular?
Yeah, sure. I got time. Saturday's starting at 1 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Yeah, we'll do it at. I'm thinking we'll do it the first Saturday of every month, 1 a.m. And I think can I just borrow your Twitch channel for it? We can stream it here.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good to me.
What about you, Sliced?
So I just sort of came out of this. I started back in the almost at the end of last summer. I started a tournament on a map I made for Minecraft called Entrapment. And I was like, I want to run this championship. It's going to be cool. And I got 12 teams for it. It's not going to be that big of a deal. And then I made one video and was like, I'm not too satisfied with the quality of this thing. And so I made a second video and used 100% footage from a mod called Replay Mod from Minecraft, which is essentially allows you to make your own camera paths, and it's becomes this more spectacular view on it. But it also meant that every video took like 20 or 30 hours to make.
Oh.
So that thing has dragged on. It's just like I just posted the last match of the final like last week or something like that. So I'm sort of just trying to get back to sort of a point where I can just do my regular stuff without being completely exhausted. But I'm pretty happy about that. And then I'm looking at like, what's my next big Minecraft thing in terms of a Let's Play? Because I finished up a couple of challenges that I did as my main series a while back, and then this Entrapment Championship happened, and that's taken all of my time. And now I'm sort of finally free to look at what's the next thing. Where do I want to go? Do I want to join a server that people are I've had some offers from people who want me to play on their like server and make videos there. Do I want to make another challenge like the ones I do before? And I haven't really made up my mind on that. And then as a part of this whole delay of this tournament, I run a 24-hour charity stream every year. And that was supposed to happen in November. So it's about time that I start looking at having that now. So it's going to come up at some point in like a month or so. So that's a lot of fun every year. And gather up some money for the Prevent Cancer Foundation, which is a pretty nice thing.
Good. I tried the charity stream, man. I tried the Child's Play. And I made it to 12 hours and I was done. I couldn't. 24 hours is too much.
It's pretty rough. I've done it twice now, and you really need that sleep after the end of it. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But I haven't decided on a specific date for it yet. There's a lot coming up. Like I said, my girlfriend works on budget cuts, and they are releasing that game on the 16th of May now. So there's probably going to be quite busy times for me and the family coming up. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see when I have time to do that. I'm probably also going to get pulled in to help them do stuff for that.
Yeah. Release parties, and it's a rough life at the end of
all the rough stuff.
Though I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't ask if Mojang's working on anything that they're not talking about yet.
I would tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
Do you have any insider information on when one going to hit?
I might, but again, if it's not public, then there are reasons for it not being public.
Yeah.
Good Lord. All right, exactly the answers I was expecting. Hawk, what's coming up in the next little while for you?
I'm the resident scrub on the podcast. I don't have any content coming out for you people. I'll just be playing more Dragon Ball. Go play Dragon Ball. It's a good game. Play on PC, and maybe we'll fight each other.
Yeah, just don't play in the lobby because the lobby's shit.
Hashtag not sponsored.
That got a lot better with the March patch.
Oh, did they think it made it better?
They made it better. It still has problems, but it's functional now. It wasn't functional before.
Oh, fair enough. Wells, I think you're gonna. I'm not sure if you're aware of the game, but you should take a look at Frostpunk. I think you will probably enjoy it.
At what?
Frostpunk.
Frostpunk?
I didn't really at the beginning of the show. I didn't really go over the games that I played because I did a fair bit at GDC. Frostpunk is there's the developers that made the game This War of Mine, which is the side-scrolling survival sort of game. You're in a war-torn place and you have to make some pretty rough decisions. Frostpunk is that as a city builder in winter. And so for example, you might have to make people work a 24-hour shift because you don't have enough coal to run the heater at the center of your town, and you might have to put the children to work. And some of those, like, it's a lot of that kind of gray moral, what do you do? There's a upside and a downside to just about everything. Surviving in the cold.
This looks right up my alley.
It is a lot of fun, and I think they're going to do very, very, very well. What else did I play? Children of Morta was a neat one as well. It's kind of, you got a home base house sort of thing with your family, and then you go off on adventures into the dungeons. And each of the family members has a different style, a different class. Like there's the one kid that feels invisible to everybody is like a thief, and he stabs things in the back and stuff like that. Really, really neat stuff. It was an awful lot of fun. All right, I guess that has just about got it for us. Let me make sure that my audio is not going to, blow anybody's ears out. But I don't have an awful lot coming up on my plate. I don't want to promise things because I keep promising things and then I don't do them and people get upset at me. We should have a news wrap-up tomorrow because that's just the usual day for the news wrap-up. And I'm working on, as I said, a Feature Creep video talking about Save the Children. Won't somebody think of the children? Too many damn people are thinking of the children because the average gamer is in their mid-30s. So that'll be a fun one to take. Other than that, I don't think I have an awful lot else. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. This was an awful lot of fun. It always is. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely week. Bye-bye.